Thank you so much, Augie, for being on my podcast. As I told you before we started the recording, I was really intrigued by you because I've seen you in my LinkedIn feed through other people I've also interviewed. And I thoroughly believe that when we want to accomplish something specific, we should walk in the footsteps of the people who have already accomplished what it is that we want to accomplish.
Hmm.
And there was something about you that really grasped my attention, and I wanted to talk to you. So I know that today you are currently the top 1% of podcasters out there, which I know personally is a hard goal to accomplish. So, of course, I want to know everything about the action steps that you did to get there when it comes to the nitty-gritty details of things. But first, I just want all of my listeners to understand who you are, Augie, and who am I talking to today?
Big question to start with. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Who am I? I will give a little bit of background. I am Greek originally. I live for the last 16 years. I have been living in the UK. I left my sunny home country to move to England. My background and what I studied is dentistry. So I studied and I practiced dentistry. At some point in my early to mid 40s, I realized that this was I needed to do something different. I felt like let's say the passion was not there for what I was doing. So that turned me into personal development. Then the podcast happened. This is a very, very, as much concise as I can put introduction so someone listening can understand where I'm coming from and where I am now.
Yes, absolutely. Did you know that I used to live in Greece for a brief period? I've actually lived in Crete for like 5 to 6 months.
Ah, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was so I lived there about in 2024, and it was incredible. I love Greece. I'm going back to Greece this summer.
Good for you. No, it's great. You get fantastic weather and even better food.
Oh my gosh, yes, you're right. The food is incredible.
Yes.
Okay, you said that you started off in dentistry and then you moved to the UK. And you said that you wanted to begin your own personal development journey. And what you are describing in your podcast is personal development mastery. So, how does one accomplish that? What was the first thing that ever triggered you to even get into that field of work, if you get my gist?
Yes, I do. When as I mentioned earlier, in my early 40s, I felt a disconnect from
Mhm.
what I was doing and what felt like I wanted to do. Even though I had no idea what I wanted to do at that time, what I knew for sure was that something was off. I did not have the desire or the passion to
Mm.
carry on. And that, interestingly enough, it happened just after I finished a master's degree. I did a master's
Mm.
degree in aesthetic dentistry,
Mm.
and I finished the master's degree. And instead of feeling super excited and motivated to put in practice all those high-end, sophisticated things that I had learned, I found
Mm.
myself on the opposite and not motivated, not having direction. Something, as I said, was off or felt disconnected. That was what led me to personal development, and that was my need or my desire to gain some answers, to understand why is this happening to me, because I thought I would be differently. So
Yeah.
that's how it started. You said about achieving mastery, and what I have understood, Maggie, over the years I've been doing this is that mastery or personal development mastery, which is the name of my podcast, is not something that one achieves. In other words,
Mm.
it's not a destination that you arrive there and you say, now I have mastered my personal development. It is a journey, it is a
Mm.
process, it is something that is ongoing. So we never arrive at this. That's how I see it anyway nowadays. It is going there, the journey there, the steps there that determine the mastery or how we perceive it anyway. I
Yeah.
don't know if that answers your
No,
question.
it does. Of course it does. And I also love that you clarified that because I agree. I agree that it
Mm,
is a journey. And I think we've probably had some sort of similar realization. It just looked differently in different timelines. But what I definitely relate to is that I actually had this meltdown this morning to my mom where I was like, why did we grow up and everyone told us that if you go to school and you get your diploma and you get your education, you're set, everything's fine, you're safe and you'll have a secure job and you'll get everything that you need to get. And now there's just not enough jobs for all of us with education. And then you have AI and all of these other obstacles, which really is forcing us to look into what are my talents? What am I passionate about? What is it that I want to do? And why do I want to do
Mm,
it? And why isn't what I'm currently doing working? And
mm,
I think the conclusion I came to is that when you're being told what to do, as opposed to figuring it out, the discovery for yourself, then you're following the crowd as opposed to looking into you and who you are and what your purpose is and what you're meant to do.
mhm.
Is that similar to what you experienced growing up? Like you were told that if you just do X, Y,
Absolutely.
Z? Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. I think since you mentioned parents, I think for our parents' generations or the previous generations, this worked. It worked very
yeah.
well because they did have, if you had a good job,
Hmm.
it would be secure. They had a pension, all of these things
Hmm.
up to, I don't know, a couple of decades ago, probably, they worked really well, but they
Yeah.
do not work anymore. And of course, with AI and the way that things are rapidly changing, I believe anyone that thinks that they can carry on what they have been doing in the sense that they feel that they will be secure and once they reach the retirement age they will be set with a pension,
Yeah.
a good pension. I think that is a wrong way to look at things, and they're probably going to be very disappointed when they
Hmm.
find out that it is not there. But yeah, I think it is. I completely agree with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I will only add to this because I think it's relevant. The reason why I became a dentist in the first place,
Yeah.
when I was back at 18 and choosing my career, was
Hmm.
because my mom was a dentist.
Yeah.
So I think that explains a lot, a lot of, what one, as you said, chooses to do, or no, is being told that it's good thing to do, and they do, versus what one is uniquely gifted or capable of
Yeah.
doing or offering to the world, really, if you want to look at it like that.
Yes, absolutely. I remember when I had my realizations that like this is not what I put in all of this work for. Like when I actually did live and exist in this workforce and being employed and in the what do you even want to call it? Like this cartwheel of you don't even necessarily know what's going to happen. And it's especially when we're seeing how the world is unfolding today, I think it's so important what you and I do, where we are sharing stories of an alternative route that many think is incredibly dangerous and scary. And I think what I would love for us to do in this conversation is to soften the blow a little bit, to kind of talk around how to navigate finding purpose, finding talents, or identifying talents. And kind of like you were talking about too, in the sense that we've talked about this prior to this call, that there's a couple of action steps that you believe are crucial to figure that out. And I would love it if we could dive deeper into that.
Sure. I will start by, what you said about being scary. And I
Yeah.
think even more scary than changing and doing something that might be uncertain towards, what you feel called to do, or at
Yeah.
least exploring it. That might be scary, but I think even scarier is living your whole life not being true to who you are and
Mm.
just doing something day in day out for, I don't know, 40 years or whatever your work life is,
Yeah.
just because you were scared to explore and look into different options, because we all live this life. This is not a rehearsal. We won't have another chance. So if we live this not according to what we truly are, then unfortunately it is very likely that when we reach the end of life and we look back, the overwhelming feeling that we will have is regret.
Yeah.
And I think that is more scary than taking a chance.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a good point. It's a really good point. Although that is all true and reasonable, it seems as though the collective, or maybe the collective is more open to it now than they were because we're being more or less forced to it or pushed into it with all of these other trends that are trending, to speak simply.
Yes.
What would be your greatest advice to someone who don't know what it is? They just don't know what it is. They've been following the crowd for as long as they can remember, and diving into something brand new seems unimaginable. And to unlock that fear factor where you get that out of the way, like, okay, the fear, okay, that's going to be there. The scary, it's going to be there. But a lot of things are scary and a lot of things can scare us, but that doesn't mean it won't be successful or that it won't teach us something valuable. What are something you would have to consistently tell yourself to stay on track and to not get discouraged and to continue to dive into what you mean is more purposeful?
I think the fear, first of all, is something that is part of us. We learning to live with it is a very useful skill because fear is just our mind that tries to protect us. And what it does by trying to protect us, and I mean the subconscious mind,
Yeah.
it tries to project everything that might go wrong.
Mm.
And of course, when we're talking about something so big as shifting or pivoting our whole career or professionally into something different,
Mhm.
then there are so many things that are unknown that they could go wrong. So the fear, it intensifies, and the role of the fear in this case is to keep us safe.
Yeah.
However, that safety, it does not necessarily mean fulfillment at all, and usually they are on the opposite ends of the scale.
Yeah.
But to answer your question a bit more specifically, for someone who doesn't know, as you said, what they would like to do, first of all, it's good to understand that it's very common, and there are very few, at least from my experience, that had like a sudden epiphany or an insight and they said, oh, now I know this is what I want to do. And usually it doesn't happen so suddenly or dramatically like this. So a way to get into this is to explore, be curious, and be willing to take some step into a different direction. You don't have to bend the boats and say, okay, I'm quitting my job today and I will figure it out tomorrow.
Mm.
You could, but of course the risk is much bigger in
Yeah.
this case. But exploring or following your curiosity, I
Mhm.
like to use that word or that way of describing something that
Mhm.
we are curious about is a very good first step.
Yeah.
There are, of course, many ways that one can describe or look inwards and find out things that are more, let's say, aligned with one's disposition or one's talents and skills. And there are
Mhm.
some beautiful exercises that one can do. But, no matter in the end, no matter whether you know very well or you don't know very well or you don't know at all, you would still need to take a step into a different direction and into most of the time a uncharted territory, which you have
Yeah.
to some extent chart out yourself because it is your life and you will have to experience some things.
Yes, absolutely. I fully agree with that. And it doesn't show really well, but on this text right here, it says stay curious and get to know yourself better. And it's kind of my own slogan that I use for my life coaching business and for my podcasting as well. I really emphasize and hone in on the curiosity part because it shows us something that we're interested in. And I think our mind is subconsciously trying to tell us to investigate further, understand better, know more. And I agree that that is a great first step, because what ends up happening when you're following that first step of, okay, what am I interested in? What am I talented at? What am I good at? I actually heard this quote by Reese Witherspoon that said, don't chase your dreams, chase your talents, and the dreams will follow. Because when you are talented at something, it speaks to what your mission was, or your purpose on earth was. Like, I don't know. We talked about it briefly. You talked about faith. I think you said something about keeping faith
So,
when we were talking before the meeting.
yes.
Yes, and that has been something true to me too, is that I don't have evidence that everything is going to work out this way, other than everything that's worked out this far in my life. But a huge component of also daring to be like, to do while being scared, or to act although you're fearful, is the faith component. And I was wondering if you had a story to share that is related to faith.
I will give you an example that it is not my own personal story, but it
Mhm.
is, I don't know if you've heard the story of the Chinese bamboo tree. So there is a kind of bamboo that takes years, once someone plants it, it takes years that nothing happens, or at least nothing apparently happens. So it doesn't even break through the ground, and it can be 3 years or more.
Mhm.
During all that time, it still requires, watering and all fermentation, all those things that a plant or a tree needs. But with what has happened is that it doesn't even break through the ground. So the faith in this case is to keep up tending to this tree that still hasn't shown any signs of growth
Yeah.
whatsoever. And the most interesting thing about the Chinese bamboo tree is that once if finally it breaks through the ground, it reaches a tremendous height. I think it is like 60 or 70 feet
Mhm.
high in a few weeks. So
Oh,
after all these years that apparently nothing was happening, all of a sudden it breaks through the ground and it grows very quickly. So the faith is, and that's, I think, the context that we were talking about, that the faith is to keep having the vision that your dream, your project, what you would like to do will materialize, it will break through the ground, it will grow, even though you might not be seeing the results you were expecting yet.
mhm.
Because similar with, the tree that needs to grow the roots to
Yeah.
such extent that then it will be strong and grow so fast so quickly. It is the same with us, with our, when we do something that we are afraid of doing or that is unknown to us, we will need to have some skills, and I mean inner skills like resilience or perseverance or these kinds of things, which are in a way similar to growing the roots. So
Mhm.
every time that, for example, you have a failure, and I will put quotation mark,
Yeah.
or a disappointment, or something that doesn't go your way, that if you allow that to be a learning experience, it grows your roots, your inner roots. So
Mhm.
next time that something like that happens, you are stronger. And if you still have more disappointments, you still carry on if you choose to, because many people, unfortunately, after a while they give up
Yeah.
and they say,
Yeah.
no, this is not working. To go back to the analogy of the bamboo, if you stop at 3 years and you stop watering it, and it will never break through the ground. But
Yeah.
you don't know, it might have been just about to do that, and we
Mhm.
need to keep it. So I think that's how the context that I used the word faith. It was not like necessarily a religious or
Mhm.
spiritual aspect. It was the trust, the belief that this will happen.
Yeah. I love that you brought out the roots, because I think that is the part that a lot of us forget to even consider, is that when you want to grow something big and tall and strong, It
Mhm.
has to have ground to stay on. And the analogy with trees, which happens a lot in this podcast, which I love, by the way, is that in order for something to grow that strong and tall, a lot of the growth happens in a place we don't even see. It is happening all underneath the ground, and the roots are growing bigger and stronger, and they're spreading, and they're getting far and long and deep, but none of us see it. It's not visible to the world, but it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that it's not happening. And like you said, then if you're patient and allow time and allow patience and tending to it in the midst of faith, essentially, then have faith that it will also spring and blossom and become what it is that we essentially
Mhm.
wanted to become. So, in speaking of becoming, you are today the top 1% of podcasters. What does one do to accomplish that?
Since we were talking about it, I will go back to exactly this. Have faith that it will happen. And you said earlier, I think it was the very beginning of the conversation, that when you believe very much and you want something very much, you follow or discuss or get influenced, if you want, by people who have been there or they have done it. So I wish it was simple to explain, okay, you do A, B, and C, and your podcast will go to 1%. But I'm afraid I haven't broken it down to the point that I can describe it like in some simple actions.
Yeah, I understand.
So it is a little bit more complicated to explain or to answer your question. But, having the desire, first of all, to
Mhm.
be there,
Yeah.
and then the perseverance and to carry on, and also being inspired or influenced by people who are there, are all of them are very good steps.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Do you have any other podcasters that you follow or some books that you read or something like that that just kind of drove it forward?
Many, many.
Yeah.
The book, sometimes there is one book in particular which it's not relevant to podcasting, because I think, and just coming up right now, hadn't considered this before. There are two different components, let's say, to your particular question. One would be the actual technical qualities
Hmm.
of a podcast. So, what you talk about, how good your sound is, or how relevant is the presentation to the listener, and so on and so on. That's one bit. The other bit is something that is, I'll go back to the analogy of the tree, is something that happens without really showing. It
Hmm.
is happens in the roots of all
Yeah.
that. And that is the kind of people you choose to speak with, the kind of preparation or conversations, or going out of your comfort zone and,
Hmm.
doing some things that will push the envelope a bit, rather than doing things in a specific way or in
Yeah.
a more comfortable way. So there are two different elements there. So I don't know if that clarifies a
Well,
bit.
it definitely opens up my mind to what I would want to follow up on, because I know that you've also spoken about in your profile that you used to be introverted, and I wonder what did it look like then for you to when you say push the envelope, you do one thing that allows for that to happen. So what is something that you've done that your younger self would look at and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did that?
What I'm doing right now, my younger self would say, no way, no way you would be interviewed or interviewing people or speaking in public or these things. Because up to my mid 30s, or no, probably it was around the same time as I changed my, as I was saying earlier, I went into personal development. I was very closed, shy, uncomfortable in social situations. I wouldn't speak with people I didn't know. I felt really, uncomfortable speaking with someone I didn't know. And So everything that I'm doing right now, or these kinds of, exposing, let's say, myself and my thoughts openly for anyone who listens to hear and potentially judge what I'm saying and say, no, I don't agree with that, or whatever it is. That is something that let's say, the first big chunk of my life I never used to do. And but what I found, and that was probably the trigger or the catalyst that changed things for me, was when I realized the reason why all this was happening. So, because there was, now I can call it limiting belief. At that time, I didn't know what a limiting belief was, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially what it was a thought or a series of thoughts at the back of my mind saying that Agi people, Agi people are not interested in what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
So once that became clear to me, it was a big realization. And the other thing I realized that was that I didn't want to live the rest of my life in such a way, because I would really feel regretful. It's so that was, what changed my
Mm-hmm.
mindset basically.
It was a couple of things that you said there that triggered my mind because I also recognize that feeling of the discomfort of stepping out of your comfort zone and then essentially
Mhm.
having to just do it a little bit more in order to recognize that like it's not the end of the world. You're not gonna die, you'll be fine. But I know that there's probably so many people out there, especially in a world that is so online. You were talking about limiting beliefs, and
Mhm.
limiting beliefs is something that is a topic that is coming up more and more in my universe too. And I recently interviewed this woman that was talking about limiting beliefs. And I kind of thought that I had that one locked in a sense that, like, yeah, no, I'm confident. I believe in myself. I got this. But what I actually failed to recognize that was that the limiting beliefs are so much more deeply rooted than I realized that they were, because they're coming from a whole society on what we believe is possible or what
Mhm.
we're
Mhm.
worthy of. And we live in a world where the system is kind of created that you have to earn your way to success. You have to earn your way to everything. And I'm starting to understand that that is a part of the limiting beliefs that keeps us stuck in this system, in this loop. Whereas when we don't have limiting beliefs, we believe that we are already worthy and we can attract it and it's coming to us and it's coming for us. And that was something that I really struggled to actually identify and understand where it's coming from. I don't know what it was like in Greece, particularly, but I know that in Norway, where I'm born and raised, everything is so comfortable and safe. There's always
Mhm.
this pillow or this thing to fall back on that is so stable that I almost wonder if that's why people don't dare to try harder or leap further, because they're so comfortable where they're at. They don't really have to. That doesn't mean they don't have big dreams or desires or want
Mhm.
to travel the world and experience this and that and see their favorite festival or concert or whatnot, but or whatever that big success or grand mystery would be to whoever it might concern. But is that something that's true for you too, in terms of like growing up in Greece? What was the systemic belief that, if anything, held you back in all of those years?
I think it is, similar to what you said. There was this kind of safety or the desire for safety. And when I was saying about becoming a dentist like my mom was, that was the main reason, because my mom was successful at her work. And
Mhm.
she said and convinced me. I mean, it wasn't difficult to convince me. I was 17 years old at that time.
Yeah.
She convinced me that this is the safe thing to do. You will do this and you will be successful. You will live your life in a certain way. You will be respected, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
You were saying about the people who remain there, even though they have dreams, even though they would like to do other things
Mhm.
because of safety. It goes back to what we were saying. There is a big price to pay. And the price that we pay is that we live our life, our limited time that we have on this
Mhm.
planet,
Yeah.
we use it up doing something that is not what feels or our heart asks of us.
Yeah.
And that's a huge price to pay because
Hmm.
we can't have another go. That's the thing. This is no, this is not a rehearsal.
Yeah, no,
This
you're
is
right.
it.
Yeah. There's this quote that I heard. I think my brother said it the other day, actually, that but he was saying it in Swedish. I'll try to translate it in English, but it's essentially saying that little did I know that every day that goes by is life itself. And it's true. It's true. Every single day we say I'll start tomorrow. Every single day we'll say, but I can't do that right now because I have too much to do, is probably when
Mhm.
you should let go of a couple of things and reprioritize what you're currently
Mm.
doing. And it's scary. It is that fear factor that I feel like is my impression at least is that that is the high part where it's so unheard of to take a leap of faith and go in a direction that one might not have had considered, but it might also have a lot to do with confidence, maybe that when you don't really believe that you're capable of doing it or that everyone is doing it, so how are you going to stand out? Like what is some thought processes that you go through or something that you tell yourself in order to don't give up, although there's so many people out there who are also doing it and doing it successfully, to not fall into the trap of like, well, maybe there's so many of us.
I'm trying to think of one single thing that is not, other people are not already doing it successfully. I think one would be very hard pressed to find something that is completely unique and new so that they can go into it without having any other people already been there. So
Hmm.
that's one thing. On the other hand, having others doing something successfully does not mean that you can't also
Hmm.
do that. It is, I think there is room if one is talented and has the desire and puts in the work and to succeed in something that they would like to do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let let's say, how many are already doing that. I wouldn't let that be in the
Mm.
way. There is success is available to anyone, I believe,
Hmm. Yeah.
if they if they do what they need to do and they put the desire and the belief and take the action and all those things, and some of them we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, unless it's great to innovate and do something completely new from scratch
Yeah.
that no one else is doing, but that would limit very much the possible things that you would do. And possibly when one looks at it like that, it will probably have the effect of stopping them in their tracks rather than
Yeah.
taking action. Saying, for example, if someone wanted to start a podcast, someone
Yeah.
listening now wanted to start a podcast, they would say, oh my God, there is so many
Yeah.
successful podcasters over there. How can I go there?
Yeah.
But the thing is that everyone, and I will stay with podcasting now since we're talking, everyone
Yeah.
who is successful right now started from, the first episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
And if I had to take a wild guess, I would say they were not successful at that time, at
No.
least with their podcast. It's normal. I think you have to, it is the process, the journey. And the fact that other people are already doing it and being very successful at it, it's not something that I would be discouraged by.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point because all over the world there's nurses and policemen and firemen and we need them everywhere. It just came to mind. It's like just because there's a lot of them doesn't mean that they're not necessary and
Yes.
everyone brings their own value. And a way that I've been trying to look at it is that just because there's a lot of people who talk about the things that I talk about doesn't mean that every voice appeals to everyone. I think sometimes there's certain people and personalities and ways of communicating that is appealing, and
Mhm.
therefore they have their own group of followers, and I think that's the way that I'm trying to frame it too, because as much as I'm talking about this as a general concept, I mean, I am one of the people who are betting on myself and have this podcast and is trying to be successful in doing it because of the impact that I want to have and also because of the life that I want to live and how they coexist with each other.
Mm.
But of course, I woke up this morning feeling completely discouraged. I was so happy I was going to talk to you because I was like, okay, but at least I know that on my calendar today, I know that I'm going to be talking with another individual who are in a similar position, and I get to learn from them and to talk with them. And so stuff like that is definitely helpful in following the footsteps, like I kind of talked about
Yeah.
introductory. And it is because sometimes I feel really strong and empowered and incredibly motivated to just push through and to create content and to be creative and to use my voice and use my gifts and talents in various ways. But other times when you don't necessarily see all of the results immediately, it gets discouraging, but I still love the process of what I'm doing. And that's why I keep doing it. It's that belief that what I'm doing is valuable and it's helpful. But I also know that I trust myself to be the right person for the job, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I would encourage you to keep on doing it. And what you said earlier about your voice or my voice appealing to different people
Yeah.
is so true because
Mm.
it will resonate differently. And I remember now it came to my mind when I heard you saying that. When I first started the podcast, or at some point early on,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of Tony Robbins,
Ooh,
who at
ooh.
that time there was also a podcast that, and I was thinking, who on earth would choose to listen to Aggie rather than listening to Tony Robbins if they were, the same exact topic that they were talking about?
Yeah.
And then I realized, not immediately, it took me a while to realize that there might be people, and there are people, that will resonate with me, with the way that I talk, with my energy, if you want,
Yeah.
in much more than they would with someone who is very much, knowledgeable and successful and
Yeah.
would cover the topic in perhaps a more comprehensive way. But
Mm-hmm.
still, that doesn't mean that everyone would relate to that
Yeah.
instead of this. So that's the beauty also, I think, of podcasting, that there is diversity and people are free to explore and choose who they resonate with and whose
Yeah.
content and voice aligns with the way that they want to learn or
Yeah.
listen. I don't know if it has happened to you, Maggie. It has happened to me many times to listen to something like a lesson or some
Yeah.
piece of wisdom, listen to it and say, oh yeah, that's interesting, and then listen to it again from another person,
Yeah.
and then at some point 5 or 6 people down the line I
Yeah.
hear the exact same thing from the seventh person. I say, aha, I get it right
Yeah.
now. And that person did not say anything new that I didn't know before, but he said it in a way that connected with me, that made sense. So that is something that is very, very much relevant to what we're talking about, that
Yeah.
each of us has their own voice and energy, and different people will be attracted to that instead of something else. So
Yeah.
please keep on doing your your podcast.
Thank you. You too, of course. And I think that is incredibly valuable information that what you said there, because I've definitely experienced this where you're hearing a piece of information, you know you've heard it before, but at some point it just clicks. And it is something about that. Maybe it's the pattern of how we learn. Maybe it is
Mm,
how many times something needs to be repeated back to you
yes.
before that's valuable information that sticks. And for someone who is content creating and want to put their voice out there, that is so impactful because you might believe that your voice is not the right one because there's so many out there, but maybe your voice at the right time is the exact right one.
Indeed it is. Indeed it
Indeed it
is.
is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. I really like that. It kind of created this little warm sensation in me that like, okay, maybe I am on the right path. I am doing the right thing. And it kind of creates this excitement in me because more often than not, I'm very fateful in myself and the work that I'm putting in. But like I said, there's gonna be days where I feel discouraged. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Me
But
too.
yeah, thank you for saying that. I think
Me
that's the
too.
truth, right? To just be vulnerable and recognize that, like, as much as it's fun and it's exciting and it's opening up for this possibility of a life that I didn't even dare imagine when I was a child, it doesn't mean it's not scary. Doesn't mean that it's not sometimes incredibly discouraging. So I really appreciate you also sharing that you experience it too.
I think everyone does.
Yeah,
Just not everyone likes to admit it, but I think it is normal for our days or life to have those ups and downs,
yeah,
or it is like that. I
it
mean,
is.
we would all like it very much to have only great days and only successes and
Mhm.
only happiness and only, but it doesn't work like that. All of
Yeah,
these need their contrast. Otherwise, they wouldn't make any sense. If there was
yeah,
not sadness, then happiness would not make any sense. So we learning to dance in
yeah,
our life. I like that the dancing analogy between those situations or
yeah.
emotions or the way that we feel
Mm.
is the whole art of living.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. I my podcast is very central towards love and attachment and relationships and understanding that too, because it's something that has been such a puzzle to me. I really struggled with the whole concept of love and keeping it and the constitution of marriage and what I believe is incredibly valuable. But I was growing up in this time where dating seemed to become increasingly hard and more people were anti-committal or just wanted to live their life longer and longer, and women are getting children later and later, and I'm like, but my body is not, I don't have all this time. What are you talking about? Biology is still biology. And so it is something that I'm incredibly passionate about, because in that spirit, the most intoxicating, beautiful feeling I've ever felt and still get to experience is being in love and sharing my life with someone. But at the flip side of it, the absolute most pain outside of losing someone to death, of course, is the heartbreak of it all. But that's the risk, right? When you want to fall in love and have a marriage and create a beautiful commitment, you are at the risk of getting your heart completely broken, because it can. It surely can. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't go for it and be brave and put ourselves out there. And that is also true for whatever it is that we're doing in terms of career and hopes and dreams, and putting our wisdom out there and sharing our lives and what it taught us. It's incredibly rewarding when it works, but sometimes when the statistics is standing still, it's scary. And that is the flip side of it. That is the risk. But it doesn't mean that it's not worth the high to kind of survive the low.
Mm. There will be a risk for anything.
Yeah,
Again, what is the other side? If you do not take the risk,
yeah,
what is it that you risk losing, or what
yeah,
is the price to pay for not taking a
yeah,
risk?
yeah.
There is no certainty. I mean, no one, as far as I know, no one can tell with certainty what will happen in the future.
No, we
So
really can't.
there is uncertainty about it. There is risk. Of course, we would all like, it's part of our human nature to want to minimize that risk, and it does
Yeah,
make sense.
yeah,
But avoiding it altogether has a huge price to
yeah.
that we pay for it, and we were talking about this a bit earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel I love having these conversations because it does so much about how I feel and how I show up in the world. So I'm really grateful that you're here and you're sharing your wisdom and your energy with me. So I thank you for that. I do wonder though, is there something we haven't talked about yet that is really important for you to share?
There is something that came up just now while you were saying that, and that would be probably more for you.
I'll take it.
And that is, I remember when, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I also enjoy and learn from my guests, and
Mhm.
I have had for years. What I found, and that was an example that came to my mind earlier when you were saying that, at some point I had to interview someone who was very famous, and in my eyes, he was sitting on a pedestal. I had put him very high, and I will tell you exactly who it was. It was, I don't know if you've watched or heard about The Secret, which was a book and a documentary.
Yeah.
So one of the people in The Secret was Dr. John DeMartini,
Mm.
who, when I was back in Greece, back in 2007, I think, when that movie came out, I was watching it, and at some point I had the opportunity to interview him for my
Wow.
podcast. And I realized initially that, okay, I'm really stepping out of my comfort zone, and I will share that very openly now and honestly, because I think it is important for you and hopefully for someone listening in a different context, perhaps.
Yeah.
I was feeling, can I actually do that? Do I have the capacity intellectually to hold the conversation for 1 hour with this person, or will I make a fool out of myself? This was my fear, or my whatever was coming up. And what I found once I went over that fear, and I went to the interview and had the interview, I realized that, oh yes, I can do that. And I can have a conversation with someone that I admire or I have admired for many, many years. And not only that, a year afterwards, I had his personal assistant reach out to me and say, John would like to come back to your show. So
Oh.
that was something that, if I listened to that voice that I'm not good enough for this and didn't take a chance on it, it would have never happened. So comes back to getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that it might not be necessarily easy, or you don't, but that's where the growth is.
Yeah.
When you do
Yeah.
something that is very comfortable and predictable and you are 100% confident about it, there is nothing for you to grow into.
Yeah. Oh,
So having less confidence than that and still doing it gives you the opportunity to expand your confidence once you do it. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that you
yes.
find it useful.
I do find it useful because, of course, I also have a dream of talking to idols or people that inspired me in kind of a grander scheme. I kind of have honed in on talking to just regular people like me, because I think somehow I believe all of us have stories to share and all of us can be impactful. It doesn't have to be this grand success story. It could just be grand epiphanies. It could just be pivotal moments and all of that. But of course, me too want to have conversations with people that I look up to and admire. And I'm really much looking forward to that. And I certainly will keep that story in the back of my head when the doubt sticks in and I'm like, oh my gosh, can I even talk to this person? But so that was helpful. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so grateful for your time.
It's my real pleasure. Thank you so much for allowing this conversation to happen.
Absolutely.